I didn't give any false hope. The question was whether or not I would do even more than was requested. What I did, I thought was appropriate and was able to be done and would get done. I didn't give bars false hope, but the Republicans snatched away the hope that they were given, and it's real hope.
Well, that was President Biden on Friday, asked if he gave false hope to borrowers after the Supreme Court blocked his promised student loan bailout on Friday. The country's highest court ruling federal law does not allow the cancellation of more than $430 billion in student loan debt. Joining me now, Georgia Congressman Buddy Carter. He's a member of the Budget and Energy and Commerce Committees. Congressman, good morning. To be clear here, President Biden also said that he's going to come up with another plan. Maybe that is an empty political promise simply because I don't think it's going to get through the courts in time ahead of the 2024 election. But what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, first of all, I'm disappointed in the Supreme Court decision, and I'll tell you why. It should have been unanimous. It is clear. Look, I'm not a lawyer, I admit that, but it should have been clear to all the justices that this was not right, that constitutionally the executive branch does not have the authority, just as Nancy Pelosi pointed out, they do not have the authority to forgive student loans. Now, look, you can take this in conjunction with the forgiveness of the marijuana offenses. I don't agree with the president on that, but I do acknowledge that he has the authority to do that. But he did not have the authority to do this. Now he's going to try to do something else. And he is giving false promise. And it's wrong to expect 100 million Americans who didn't have the opportunity to go to college to pay for those who did go to college.
And that is the argument that I've seen repeatedly, is that in particular for those that say that I didn't go to college and I went to trade school. Are you going to pay for my loan for trade school? I mean, there's so many multiple sides to this. I think you're correct. I want to ask you about President Biden. He took his son, Hunter, to Camp David for the second weekend in a row. But there's a lot of scandals around this family, as you know. Hunter's attorney exploding at the House Ways and Means Committee over their investigation into the first son sweetheart deal with the feds. In a 10-page letter, he wrote, quote, "It is easy when a committee does not operate with fairness and thoroughness and an adherence to rules and procedures to forward a false political narrative." You have done that. What is your reaction to this, Congressman?
Well, it's obvious that there's a two-tier system here. There's a system for the Clintons and for the Bidens, and there's a system for everyone else. And that's what upsets people so much. The Department of Justice is not applying the law uniformly. And I want to know what Joe Biden knew in these business dealings, just like Ways and Means are doing a great job of investigating this. And we in the Republican Party are going to continue to investigate this because we want to know what Joe Biden knew. What Hunter Biden has done is wrong. There's no question about that. But more importantly, how was Joe Biden, the big guy, what was he doing there? And what was his role in all of this?
There's still a lot of questions out there, those $5 million payments in particular, and that's where I think, James Comer's investigations are certainly going to continue, and there's more answers that need to be found over that. I want to move to some news from you, Congressman. You have introduced a bill to require schools to carry Narcan. That's the medication used to treat a suspected opioid overdose. Tell me more about that, because I'm wondering if in particular in your district you're seeing a higher incidence of overdose in the schools there.
Well, we are, and we're seeing it all across the nation. We've got a twofold problem. We've got the amount of fentanyl that's coming illegally across that border. That's why the border needs to be secured. But we also need to address the fentanyl that's in this country now, enough to kill over 1.3 billion people. And the way you do that, and one of the ways you do it, is to have the Keeping Kids in School Act and Keeping Kids Safe in School Act. And that would require all schools to have an opioid overdose rescue kit that includes Narcan, which, if used quickly enough, can reverse the effects of the fentanyl. I keep Narcan in my backpack. I take it everywhere I go. Thankfully, I've not had to use it, and I hope I don't. But this ought to be in every emergency box in every school in America because it can save lives, and we need it. It ought to be just like Serpivipicac that used to be kept in medicine cabinets. We ought to have Narcan available.
Do you have a cost estimate to this?
Well, it will be costly. There's no question about that. But even if it saves one life, then it's worth it. And we will make sure that the schools are assisted, and we will make sure that they are that the costs that they incurred, we want to make sure that they are reimbursed for that. We need to make sure that this is available. It can save lives, and even if we save just one life, it's worth it.
And I agree with you. I think it's a great idea. I think the question mark becomes obviously what you can get approved, because as you know, the House controls the purse strings, and there's been so much pushback on budgeting. Obviously, as there's still concerns about the U.S. economy, which is something that you've come on the program and talked about many times, including the inflationary impact that you've seen in your district. Whether it's food prices or gasoline or services. So, please keep us posted on the future of that bill, Congressman.
Thank you. I will.